Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Just making sure I'm not still on mute. No. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for this webinar, The Power of Personal Brand at Work. So I'm Colette. I run brand and strategy consultancy, Brand by Me, and we work with organizations and businesses that um, look to build brands that drive social change and positive impact. However, we also work with individuals who want to build personal brands that do exactly the same thing. And that's what I'm hoping to do today, is to introduce you to some of those principles about building a powerful personal brand. It's also Black History Month. Well, technically, Black History Month officially ended yesterday. But for us, it's been a month of real inspiration and some very brilliant conversations around race at work that we're hoping to continue. And the role of doing this webinar is to maybe help you guys kickstart some of those conversations by looking at your personal brand and how you can really leverage them at work. A few housekeeping things before we get into the webinar itself. First of all, I obviously love technology, but sometimes it does fail us. So if at any point you can't hear or you can't see the screen or the slides, it might be worth either giving it a minute or just dialing out and dialing back in again. If it turns out that the Wi-Fi here drops out or something hideous like that happens, we will do a recording and get this to you. So don't worry, you will get the full webinar. But for the interests of this, I have to sort of crack on as if everything's working brilliantly, unless somebody tells me otherwise. The other thing to say is that this webinar I want it to be a little bit interactive. So there's points where we're going to ask you to comment in the box. And in the chat box, in response to some questions we'll ask you. We may have time for questions at the end, but personal brand is a big topic. So, and actually it's something we could talk on, like we can do a whole 6-week course on this. So in the interest of sharing learnings, what I'll get you to do at the end, I'll give you a couple of ways you can interact with us and get in touch with us. What I thought I'd start by doing, if it's okay, is I'd like to share a bit of my story, just so you understand why I'm here and why I'm able to talk to you about this stuff. So, as I said, animation. As I said, I now run a brand and strategy consultancy called Brand by Me. But over the last, just coming up for 20 years, my background and interest and work has been about building brands, whether that's working in-house in companies or I started life in advertising. And I was able to build brands that really drove impact, whether that impact was commercial success, so you can say some of the big brands there, whether that impact was about globally bringing together and really promoting a product and being really clear on what it stood for. And in the latter half of my career, then really looking at building brands that drive social change, working within the charity sector. And I love building brands. It's what I'm great at. It's what I love to do. I'm absolutely fascinated by the relationship that people have with brands and the power of brands to impact people, the way they think, the way they see stuff, the way that they, even their lens on the world. The thing about my previous career, until about 3 or 4 years ago, is that whilst I was very good at building brands for commercial success and for organizations and businesses and big firms and even charities, what I hadn't understood was the importance of maybe building a brand around myself and my activities within that. A brand that would maybe help me do the things that I do best. A brand that would deliver me sort of financial and commercial success. A brand around my activities. It's not something that I really understood the power of or necessarily how to do in my career, despite being really good at building big brands. And what that meant that actually, because of this, I faced barriers, I faced challenges. And I'm going to talk about some of those and talk about some of those experiences on a subsequent slide. That all changed about 3 years ago, as I said, when I set up Brand by Me, the strategy consultancy. Brand by Me is all about helping brands drive social change and positive business impact. And it's been a kind of a revelation, really, in having my own business. What I've been able to do is take the secrets of building those big brands, one, and look at how we can build brands that drive positive change, social change, build brands for brilliant causes. But also increasingly, because of the profile of the businesses and individuals I worked with, so much smaller organizations, maybe even organizations that are just one person, as well as the big organizations, I started to understand how those secrets of building big brands very much were relevant in terms of building brands for individuals too. And in having a brand for my own business to build, I started to understand how I could use some of those tools, techniques and skill sets in building the big sort of commercial brands to really build brands around individuals. And that's what I want you to do, to introduce you to today, because it's Black History Month. I'm a Black woman. I'm a Black woman in business. I was a Black woman in the workplace. And over time, I've understood the power of personal brand, the benefits and the rewards of building a powerful personal brand. For me, it's led to award success for our business. It's led to award success for me personally. It actually, some of the things whereby before, some of the barriers and things that maybe people told me I should hide about myself, or the things that people said I should maybe dial down or maybe not be, are actually the reasons why Brand by Me gets clients now. And what I'm not saying today, otherwise that would be a different webinar, is building a personal brand is only possible if you set up your own business. That's absolutely not true. This webinar is called Building the Power of Personal Brand at Work. What I'm going to introduce you to is some tools and techniques that have really help us build up brands, for organizations, but also will help build personal brands. And maybe introduce you to some stuff I wish I'd known in the workplace to really look at building a really powerful personal brand and what that is. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit more about what one of my friends terms the business of being Black at work. Because it is Black History Month. And as I said, Black History Month has been a month for us at Brand by Me of being inspired by some amazing organizations that are really looking at championing Black history, Black excellence, and really, equipping employees to have really positive conversations around race, and really doing some tangible, meaningful activities that actually don't just exist within the month, but also a year round. But I've equally been reminded about maybe the challenges. I mean, not that it's something I had to be reminded of, because it's something I don't forget, around the challenges that we as Black people face in the workplace. And I've got some snapshots. Now, these are screenshots from my LinkedIn and one from Twitter. I didn't have to dig hard for these or even do a shout out. Hey, Black people, tell me what it's like at work. I just had to capture the current conversations, insights, experiences that are being shared. When talking about the reality of being Black in the workplace, and maybe even wider conversations around diversity. And those experiences are captured in these screenshots, but they're not unique to these people. This is experiences that are shared, and I know this from the experiences of my network and my connections. So I'm going to ask you at this point, if you see experiences that you feel like, actually, this is some stuff I feel. So, for example, if you ever felt invisible at work, if you've ever had to hide who you are, been told you have to hide who you are to fit in, or been told that there's aspects of your personality that you think make you great, people are like, no, sorry, don't be like that, be more like this. People have been told maybe that you're too angry just because you're standing up for yourself, standing up for what's right, or even just trying to do your job. Feeling maybe that you've been stereotyped at work, or people have assigned a stereotype to you instead of being able to feel yourself. Or simply, as the top quote says, actually feeling like you want to find your voice within your organization, this webinar is for you. So as I said, feel free to comment in the chat box. You don't have to. This is very vulnerable stuff. But that's why we're doing this, because we know the reality of what it is to be Black at work. There are shared experiences of being a woman at work, of being a person of color at work. Actually, and frankly, personal brand is a useful skill set for everybody. You're going to get something out of this. But this is why specifically we're doing this, is because we wanted to do something positive to help people take forward the conversations and use Black History Month as a platform to start tackling race at work. And we wanted to also equip people with the skills to really be able to show up as themselves at work, not having to fight stereotypes, or having to actually experience horrendous, what we now call microaggressions, but frankly are just inappropriate, embarrassing situations that should be relegated to those embarrassing sitcoms from the 70s. So I've talked a lot about the power of personal brand, and that's what we're going to get into now. Because the power of personal brand is summed up by this lovely quote. If you follow Brand by Me on social, or if you've ever heard me speak about personal brand before, you'll have seen this, because we love it. Today, you are than you. That's truer than true. There is no one alive who is you than you. This is the power of personal brand. It's in the name, that personal bit. Because actually, personal brand is about articulating, understanding, and defining what makes you you, and then looking at how we can leverage that at work or in our business. But the personal brand bit, often when I see stuff around personal branding, it focuses on the outward presentation of that. So, make sure that your social media profiles are like this, or make sure you're gathering followers, or make sure that you're dressing a certain way, or make sure you have your headshots, or whatever that looks like, or make sure you have thousands of followers. That stuff, don't get me wrong, there's a role for that. But the power of personal brand is not that. The power of personal brand is about equipping and enabling you to understand what makes you youer than you. Because, as the quote said, there's no one alive who is youer than you. There's no one alive who can do what you do in the way that you do it. They might have the same job as you, in a different organization. They might have similar goals to you. But there's no one alive who is youer than you. And having and building a personal brand is about simply capturing that, unlocking it, and putting it to work. And that's exactly what we're going to do in the remainder of this webinar. So I'm going to take you through a framework. As I said, one of the light bulb moments for us at Brand by Me was understanding that the same frameworks we use to build brands for organizations that drive positive change, that drive business impacts, that have driven commercial success in my previous career. Exactly those same frameworks are really useful when you think about your brand as an individual. So I'm going to introduce you to that framework first. And then I'm going to help you understand how you can really, maybe just introduce you to making this a superpower at work. So let's go. First things first, the framework. There are 4 key elements when it goes into the next slide, or your personal brand. And these are your purpose, your personality, your vision, your values. So let's start with purpose. These 4, as a framework, are exactly the same as we use for brands, as I said. And the idea is they work together. So across your career, you might have looked at different parts of these. So you might have looked a little bit at vision. You might have done some work on purpose. You might have done some work on values. But the idea of personal brand is bringing these things together and understanding how they can reinforce and work together to build your personal brand. So the first one, purpose. Why we exist. Purpose is it's so key that actually I think it's almost become a bit of a buzzword. Find your why, find your purpose. Everybody needs a purpose. But it doesn't mean that we should be cynical about it, because actually from a personal brand point of view, understanding purpose is everything. So your purpose is made up of kind of two big things. On one hand, it's about that stuff that makes you special, the stuff that you're really passionate about, great at, and makes you stand out. And there'll probably be a few things that meet all those criteria. Great at, passionate about, makes you stand out. On the other hand, it's then about working out why the world needs that. The world can be the world, like literally world domination, but it could also be your local environment. But the two, where the two intersect, that's your purpose, where you understand what makes you special, stand out, what you're passionate about, and what you're great at, and work out how the world needs that. That is your purpose. And it's really, really useful. And I'm going to talk about in a couple of slides about why that, how that can help you use your personal brand as a superpower at work. Just looking at time, so I'm going to move forward. The second one is personality. Personality is my favorite bit of personal brand, and particularly when I work with individuals, because actually it's what it says. It's like your personality. The thing is, we all have brilliant, multifaceted, and very complex personalities. So from a personal brand point of view, personality is all about identifying the 2 or 3 traits that are you on your best day at work, that help you show up in a way that, you know, helps you do stuff in your own unique way. Identifying 2 or 3 traits that actually make you, make you different from anyone else. And there will be 2 or 3, no more than. And so it's worth thinking about, you know, a really good question to ask is, okay, how do I do things on my best day? And write down traits. They should be adjectives. There should be, you know, personality traits like, so one of mine is loves to laugh, because I really do love to laugh. One of my personal brand traits is love to laugh, personality traits. That's an example of how I do things differently to other people. I love to laugh. Lots of people do, but at work, it's one of the things that people comment on and I get feedback on is this idea of this energy, this infectious energy and humor that I bring. So it's worth thinking about those aspects of personality that really come into play at work and will help you kind of show up and do things in your own unique way. As I said, it's interesting because sometimes the things that you know that are your kind of core personality strengths, people will equally be like, ooh, too much, not for me. And that's fine, because not everybody likes everyone. And people won't like everything you do. But it's about you understanding those and how to put them to work in a way that's positive. And we'll talk about that in a couple of slides' time. Once we've nailed our purpose, the other element of personal brand that's really useful to think about is vision. Now, often vision can be a really nebulous thing. What's the future? The future, what the future looks like, or the world in the future. But actually, we have quite a specific definition, which is your vision is the future if you're living your purpose. And that's a really core element of your personal brand, because if you imagine this, you know your purpose, so you know why you exist. And then you've looked at the future and gone, actually, this is what it looks like if I'm delivering this purpose consistently. How amazing is it, therefore, to look at that future and know what it looks like to deliver your purpose? You can start to plan against it. You can start to look forward. You can start to actually plan your actions so you're working towards that future. It makes it much more specific and tangible. And from a personal brand point of view, it's really important to have vision, because that's something you can also engage other people in. People will share your vision. They'll get excited in your vision, what the future looks like if you're delivering your purpose, and they'll start to help you with it. And then finally, values. From a work point of view, perhaps the most underestimated but most important element of personal brand in the workplace specifically. So again, personally, values are your non-negotiable principles. So personally, they're actually, your values are anything you value from a personal point of view. But at work, they take on a slightly different definition. It's all about thinking about the non-negotiable principles that drive how you work, who you work with, where you work, and actually understanding that although you have lots of things you value, there'll be a handful that are non-negotiable when it comes to work. The non-negotiables that mean that no matter what, you'll always look to have them fulfilled, or if they're not being filled, you'll actually feel really uncomfortable. And again, we're going to talk about what that means in terms of making your personal brand a superpower at work. So this is the framework. I encourage you, when we send around the recording, to spend some time looking at these things. If you want to understand what this looks like, head to brandbyme.co.uk and /brand, I think it is. our brand, or you can navigate there from the homepage, and you'll see our brand, Brand by Me's brand, purpose, personality, vision, and values. And it'll give you an understanding of maybe what you might want to put in. Obviously, that won't be, you can't put in our brand into your framework, but use this as a framework to define your personal brand, because it really helps to look at these individual things, your purpose, your personality, your vision, and your values, and really look at how these come together. So in the last 10 minutes, what I want to do now is explore 3 ways that will help you look at how to make your personal brand a superpower at work. And you can see there are 4 elements of the framework, but there's only 3 ways, and that's in the interest of time. And also to say that this is a real starting point, it's a real introduction, and there's lots of things we can do to move forward from today and really take this forward, and we'll talk about that at the end as well. So the first way to look at making your personal brand a superpower at work is really to use your purpose as what I call your opportunity lens. So obviously there are many, many different options that we're presented with at work. If you understand your purpose, though, or have a sense of purpose, it doesn't need to be, I should say, that purpose is not a one-time thing that you wake up one morning and then you're just done with. It's something you evolve a sense of. But when you have a sense of purpose, you can start to use that to act as a lens for whether something's an opportunity at work or whether it isn't. And that opportunity lens is really, really powerful. I'll give you an example of it, and I think some of you will sort of appreciate this scenario. It happened to a friend of mine. She walked into work and walked in. Her boss called her into the office and said, "Great news, we've got an opportunity. We want to set up this whole new area, and we'd like to give you charge of it. So we'd like you to take charge of this whole new area of the business." And immediately, great. Couple of questions about this new area. Obviously, I'm in charge of this area at the moment, this current area. So is this a new role? Am I moving on? Well, no, this is the same role, just with more. This is a new area. It's a new area. It's an opportunity. Okay. Is it a promotion? Is there more money associated because it's a much bigger piece of work? Well, no, we thought you wanted an opportunity. This is what I mean about needing to have an opportunity lens. Now, obviously, no one should take on, big added new bits of remit without some sort of remuneration or negotiating. But when it's your purpose, it helps you identify the what's in it for you and how you can use these opportunities as they're presented to take you forward. And also what you need to do to negotiate to make sure they'll have real benefit from you. So when you understand your purpose, you can use it as a filter. Is this thing going to take me towards my purpose or isn't it? And if it isn't, I probably should look away and not doing it. If it is, I'm going to do it, but I need to make sure I negotiate it in a way that works for me and will take me towards my purpose, not end up burning me out. So you can see that's an example of the opportunity lens at play, and purpose is a really good way for navigating that sort of situation. Second, then, way to use your personal brand to be a superpower at work is about values. Remember when I said values are your non-negotiable principles at work? The things that determine how you work and maybe where you work, and they're also the things that help you understand maybe sometimes when things don't feel quite right in your gut. So it's worth using your values to really hone and articulate your gut instincts. And what I mean by this is think back to those times where something just didn't feel right or it felt brilliant, and think about what was my value at play here. So either when it didn't feel right, what was the value that was bumping up here that wasn't really, things weren't really syncing with? Or when it was, what was the value? And then you can use that to articulate. You can use that to articulate your gut instinct. So rather than saying, oh, it just doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel right in my gut, you can start to use your value to really articulate that. So you can say, for example, so I'll give you an example. One of our values, I realized it really early on when I was in advertising, was about this need to do good and deliver social good in some way in my work. That was really important to me. By realizing that, it helped me understand why some situations and some workplaces just weren't right for me, because actually, particularly in advertising, I wasn't really working on brands that were doing that. But it also helped me to articulate that to others, to say, okay, well, you're offering me the chance to move on to this brand, but ultimately what I'm looking for is an opportunity, to work on something that's going to deliver social good, and this doesn't deliver that. So this is why it's bumping up against my value. Now, let me be clear: you don't have to explain your values to other people, but it does give you language. Rather than saying it doesn't feel right, it gives you language to talk about and have conversations around why things don't feel good in your gut. It also helps you understand what that gut feels trying to tell you, if you can link it to the values and just ask the question, what's the value at play here? Very useful for navigating difficult situations, but also for getting more benefits. So for gravitating to people or situations or workplaces that really chime with your values too. And even understanding your values at work, because they will show you, they have your values up there front and center. And so it will tell you what those values look like. Moving forward, because I recognize we've got 5 minutes left. The final one is about personality. So this is me. I said one of my personality traits is love to laugh, because I do at work. I love making things fun. It doesn't mean that I don't have gravitas, or that when I was in the workplace, I was like the office joker. What it did mean, though, was that I was able to understand, by understanding that element of my personality, I was able to think about times where it was very useful in a workplace to have someone that can bring that humor and energy. So I'll give you an example. Brand projects are brilliant. They start off, everyone's excited, and then they go through a stage where it gets really difficult and people are like, oh no, I don't want to do it anymore. At that point, it's really useful to have somebody or a way of bringing the fun back into brand. And by understanding that this was a personality strength that I had, it helped me think about ways I could demonstrate that at work. So for example, in the workshops I did, in exercises, in ways that I was at meeting, in one-to-one exercise I did. And it's a really good way, when you understand those personality traits, to think about how you demonstrate them. What am I going to do differently in this meeting? What am I going to write? How am I going to write? Because it allows you to be, as it says, you are the new. And that demonstration of personality, thinking about personality, not just something as we are, but something we need to demonstrate in our day job, something we need to look for opportunities to really show and highlight, is a really good way of allowing you to be yourself at work and actually using and leveraging your personality as a strength. So that's it. There are 3 ways there: by using your purpose as an opportunity lens, by using your values to really hone and articulate what's going on in your gut, and by making sure that you think about your personality traits and those 2 or 3 strengths that you on your best day as something you need to demonstrate. So we've got about 3 minutes left, and I'm going to keep talking because I want to talk about some ways that maybe we can help you take your personal brand forward. But as we do so, I just want to ask you now, you've heard a lot today, there's been a lot of content here. So think about maybe what's one thing you're going to take away in terms of thinking about personal brand as being a superpower in your workplace. And if you want to comment or just think about that, but if you want to add it into the comments, we'd love to hear it. Because this webinar is just the beginning. Of course, I wish that in a half-an-hour webinar, I could introduce you to all the secrets of personal brand and you just walk away and do it and it'd be awesome. And some of you, that may be the case. If it is, do let me know, because I'd love it if that was the magic webinar effect that this is. But should you want to take this forward, here's a couple of ways you can think about doing it and how Brand by Me can potentially support you in it. The first one is, if you've sat back and looked at this content about purpose, personality, building this framework and thought, actually, this could be really useful for my organization, do get in contact with us, because we run programs of personal brand work within organizations, everything from one-off workshops to 6-week training programs, or even longer, one-to-one accountability sessions. So if that's something you're looking for your team, then do get in touch with us, because it's something we can really help. And we've done this for a number of brands. Even running webinars like this, it can be really helpful, particularly in global organizations. Secondly, we are about to run our first ever personal brand mastermind, where we're bringing together a very hand-selected group of change makers and leaders. We're only going to have about 10 people on the first one, where we will walk them through the personal brand development process that we use, And we're also going to look specifically about what it means to lead and deliver change and impact, and how you can use your personal brand to really drive change, whether that's in your immediate environment, in your organization, for your business, what that looks like. And you'll do it with a group of like minds. And I know we ran a mastermind on strategy at the beginning of the year, and it was so powerful in just sort of crowdsourcing ideas and really helping you hold accountable for some of the stuff that maybe you learn about in training courses but never get around to doing. So it's a really good way to work, and also a way to connect with like minds. And from our strategy mastermind, I know there's people that have just gone on and been able to connect. And finally, if you're looking at this thinking, oh, we just need this, I just need this. For me, it's something that I really want to understand my personal brand, but I don't know where to start. You can equally work with us on a one-to-one basis. We don't do a lot of one-to-one work, I have to be honest, because we work with organizations and in groups, but I have a handful of places that I'm opening up because I feel really passionately about the power of personal brands. If this is something you want to do, then get in contact with us. And it's something you can find at brandbyme.co.uk, brand you. And also what I'll do, I'll send around some stuff when I send around the webinar. So I know it's 1:30, so this is the time that we're about to end. So I'm just going to leave you with one final thought, and it's this. We talked at the beginning about the power of personal brand. It's that you're you are the new, and it's all about unlocking the power of you and understanding what makes you you and how that makes you thrive at work. The point about personal brand, and I love this Toni Morrison quote, is because actually it is powerful, but it is only powerful if you're going to use that power to equip and empower others. So what I'd ask you to do today is, if you've loved and you've got something out of this workshop, go ahead and share it with other people. Use this knowledge to empower other people, because that's why we're all here. We all know people that have kind of scaled the heights and then not managed to kind of create opportunity for those around them. Let's not be those people. So if you agree with that, again, just type in the comments. But otherwise, all that's left for me to do is to say, if you have further questions, this is an intro. So if you have further questions, you can contact us at hello@brandbyme.co.uk. You can find us on social at brandbymehq on Twitter and Insta. Or you can go to our blog, brandby.me, where there's loads of stuff and richness on personal brand. I hope that you've understood kind of some of just a starting point about how powerful personal brand can be in the workplace. And I hope it's given you some food for thought in terms of taking this forward. Thank you so much for being part of the webinar, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care. Bye.